Short Rest with Fonzi and Carlo.
Hello, humans.
What's his name again?
Kali,
Kali. Hello,
say
Kali.
hi to
She, no?
say hi to our 6 viewers.
Nice. Hey, Kali. Bye, Kali. Hello there.
Hey guys, welcome to the
Hi.
short rest. I am Fonzie, and I am with.
DM Carlo here, fixing my hair because our last week's encounter was pretty harrowing.
Was it? You were pretty spineless and
Yeah,
scared.
yeah, yeah, man. I
Ayaw
didn't.
talaga makipaglaban eh. If you guys want to know what we're talking about, they played a season 9 tier 2 mod with me, and we posted it on tabletop TITOS, so check it out.
Yeah,
And you'll get to see how these adventurers, quote unquote, managed to go through a forest of evil, avoiding as much encounters as they could.
yeah. We tried to play up the social encounter, but really we're very scared of dying.
Yeah. So for today though, for this week's episode of the short rest, since we were talking about being scared of dying and playing up social encounters and stuff like that, we just thought of maybe it would be a good time to go through some community threads and go through some
Yeah,
questions there and maybe answer a few from there. So, are you up to that?
yeah, I'm cool with it. So just to let everyone know, this isn't, how should I say this? This isn't scripted. Like we have a bunch of questions, we have our Reddit threads open, and we'll just read them out and we'll give our thoughts on it. So yeah, that's about it. But before we move towards that, let's anchor down and roll for some hit dice because it's been 7 days since our last meeting, Fonzie. So I know, how are you, man?
I'm recovering from a relatively long ride. 60
Nice.
kilometers up and down. In Davao City, we'd call that Kalinan.
Kalinan.
Kalinan is it's on the road heading to Bukidnon, which is one of the more hilly parts of Mindanao. And yeah, we did a fairly long-ish ride, 60K,
Nice.
heading up to a farm slash restaurant there, and we had breakfast there. I didn't quite enjoy it because oh,
Everything was hurting.
everything was hurting and I wanted to puke so bad. But yeah, managed to get up there. It was probably my longest ride to date, maybe 60K. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was the first time for a long ride and definitely not the last. I had so much fun.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I'm willing to bet that you burned all of what you ate in that restaurant because
And more.
oh
According to my
yeah,
app thingy, I burned over 5,000 calories. Six
holy
thousand.
mackerel.
That's a lot of calories.
That's a lot of calories, man. And
Mhm.
if yeah, that's good to know, man. Man, I miss riding out in Luzon. Medyo maulan, so I couldn't ride out. Yeah, it's good to know. Ako naman, I've been busy at work lately as always naman. And gratefully then I'm very regular with my workouts now. I've posted 14 videos on my channel that talk about that specifically because I decided to vlog, quote unquote, those workouts every day. And yeah, other than that, I got some work done for the channel. I was able to come up with at least two new video series. So those are coming up. And yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight's game. Hopefully, if everyone's available. And yeah, really, that's just about it, man.
Yeah.
All right, let us
Great.
proceed with the questions.
Okay, so would you like to roll initiative?
Sure. Hold on. Let me grab my dice. Yeah. Um. Oh, okay. I rolled a 2.
So I'm first to
That
the 12.
sucks. Okay,
So
go ahead.
with the going first, I'm going to ask you
Mm-hmm.
this question from, hold on, where is it? Okay. From username Florak, which was submitted to the DM Academy Reddit.
Mm.
And he asked, what would be good monsters for an evil summoner to use? So if you
Mm-hmm.
were an evil summoner, what are good monsters for you to use?
Hmm. Do I answer first? Is that how we're gonna, no? We're
Yeah, you
gonna.
answer first.
All right.
So,
Sige.
assuming now that the party is tier 2, fresh tier 2s, like
Mm-hmm.
level 5s. And then yeah, so what would be the monsters that you would summon for this
Evil
party?
summoners. Well, first we have to consider. Well, first and foremost, we have to consider the background of the evil summoner. Is he some sort? We'll have to take a look at his class, and then we'll have to take a look at syempre, the player's handbook, because I assume that this summoner is going to use a summoning spell. So let me grab my player's handbook really quickly. Um, it depends, I guess, on the background and the type of of enemy that they're facing. Say they're
May
facing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe let's put him inside a season. Maybe we're talking about Rise of Tiamat level of, or universe or lore of kind of summoners. Like what would you summon for that kind of cultist?
If he was a cultist, for instance, he would summon some drakes or some wyverns, definitely. Again, it if the play, it depends. If the DM follows a certain rule that allows him to just summon, if it was a specific ability, I would always prefer to I would always prefer that it summon something um that's very relevant to the background of the person summoning. So if it was a dragon cultist, summoning a dragon or any draconic creature would definitely be a must.
Mhm.
But if the DM prefers to use a specific spell, probably a twisted version of summon woodland creatures. I know there are a lot of summoning spells. There's also the gate spell, by the way, which is really high level summoning spell, quote unquote.
Level
Yeah,
9.
yeah. I would tend to I would defer to the background of the character. So a
Mhm.
cultist would summon anything draconic. If for instance, if we're going to talk about seasons, and you're from season 9, so in the Avernus, you could, if your villain is obviously a demon, there are and demons have a natural ability to summon other demons. Sorry, devils rather. Then yeah, devils would be a good fit or would be good summons.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, what sort of devils would you throw at your if you're a DM?
at level fives. And that depends on the party composition, I guess. But I would give them around if they're at around level 5. I'd probably give them around at least challenge 5 monsters, I think. So if I'm gonna look through my through another resource book, this is the monsters manual. I'll just I'll see how many monsters or how many devils I can how many devils we can summon with that.
Yeah. And for like one of the more like tier 1 friendly monsters or creatures that you could summon, for your tier 1 or like borderline tier 2 players could take, probably Hellhounds.
Mm.
They offer a really great experience in terms of introducing Hellhounds into the mix, into the battle, because they're hella scary,
Mm-hmm.
and they're particularly very easy for you as a DM to be able to introduce, because we've seen a lot of movies with dogs crying in the corner and maybe like putting into account like wolves and stuff like that. Maybe, shadow demons are great. And if you're feeling particularly pissy about your situation and you want to just kill and challenge your players, quote unquote, send out Bulgura, which is a relatively hokey figure that will send shockwaves of terror into the
Ooh.
spirits of your players. So those are really great suggestions there. Um,
Demons, man.
yeah, aside
Those are
from that,
scary.
like spine devils might be good. Like I'm thinking about, like when I think about like summoning, I always try to like, my idea of it is that they, most of them would come from a different plane of
Mm-hmm.
existence. Like for example, summoning into that you could summon an ifrit, or summon elementals and stuff like that. So those are things that we could like take into account. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to like summon a pirate leader or something like that. That would be weird, right?
How does that happen? Why am I here? Yarg.
What am I doing back here? So those
But
are relatively. But my go-to would probably be Hellhounds. Yeah, Hellhounds, and probably Elementals. Freets are great, especially if you're thinking about like, if we thought about like the realm of fire and stuff like that,
yeah,
which is kind of like very thematic to most of the adventures here. If we're
yeah,
thinking about like season 9, some like maybe ice elementals, and maybe like a young ice dragon, something like that would be very apt. Or if you're like tier 3 or tier 4, maybe a Dracolich would be
oh
an
yeah.
excellent like BBEG after
Mm-hmm.
the summoning.
Yeah. Summoning on a free T wouldn't be too far. For example, if you're fighting a wizard or an evil wizard who has a particular affinity for flames. Yeah, and I think it based on lore. If I can remember correctly, if Riti have this nasty habit of being trapped into things or being conjured into being, I'm not sure. Yeah, they're a lot like genius, if I can remember correctly.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and they can have they can banish you once a day. They have
oh,
banishment.
they have banishment. Yeah.
So that's very like that's a very hefty headache to have, like in
Mm-hmm.
terms of an encounter. Plus they have really powerful like fire spells that you could use.
Yeah.
But essentially, yeah, I agree with you, Carlo, 100% when you said that, like, it depends on like the theme of what you're going through or what you're doing. It depends what the season is. If you're running a like an AL module and you have like a summoner there that you can have at your disposal. Like if you're running a season 10 mod, it would make sense to summon an Ifriti in the middle of a snowstorm. So that would suck for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we would just be a little bit more sensitive to that. That depends on what module you're running, what
Yeah.
season you're in, and if you're running homebrew, then
Go
whatever,
crazy.
go crazy.
Yeah. So I love homebrew. Yeah. All right. We hope we've answered your question. So at the end of the day, it'll depend on your it'll depend on your rules, on
Hmm.
your house rules, and yeah. As in my case, I feel now, as so long as the background checks out and affinities are followed when it comes to summoning, it's fine. Like if I were to be like Fonzie, I'll ask you right now. If you were to be an evil summoner, what would you summon?
Um, well,
If
the
you were if you were like an evil bard or an evil, I don't know, wizard, a summoning class mostly.
what would I summon?
Mm-mm.
Maybe a very nice looking unicorn.
Are we? This is hard. This is hard. Here's going back to our last session. I think 2 weeks ago, where I summoned the
Anything,
unicorn.
anything celestial.
Yeah. Okay. If you, is this no? So yeah. Okay. So you
I
don't have
think
an evil alignment. Yeah.
I think it would be awesome for a summoner or a to be able to summon something holy to
Oh
defeat
yeah,
you.
bro. How is this? What is happening? How are you able to summon that? Wow, man. I would. I'm very predictable, so I would summon a effing dragon agad.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
bro.
You
There
wanna
are
proceed? Mhm.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I was just gonna say that there are a lot of like demons or and devils are scary, but celestials, dude,
Yeah.
they're scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So proceeding to the next question, it's your turn, my
All
friend.
right. I think you like this. You'd like this one. So this is again back to the in the DM Academy Reddit. It's from Kokma. It's Kochma. So Kochmah. This was uploaded 10 hours ago. My player wants to RP but is bad at it. How do I help him?
How define bad though? Like right? Like what's bad RP? Like what does that
Uh,
mean? Like is
I
he
mean,
awkward? Like is he right? So it just depends on what or how you define bad, like and what that means for
uh,
you. Right?
okay, so I'll read out there are characterizations to this, So the issue isn't that his RP is bad, but he says he's having issues getting into character and imagining his character's motivations. On top of that, he says he prefers to think before he talks. But because of the aforementioned issues, he usually ends up not coming up with anything and staying quiet the whole conversation. How do
Uh,
I help him? Is there anything I could do to coach him, etc.?
um.
So
All
that's a
right.
good question. Actually, I
It
have
is.
problems with that.
It
Yeah.
is. Well, it's all about providing your players a safe space to
Mm-hmm.
explore. So there's a reason why there are hesitations happening in the table, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be internal or external. So what you would want to do is to encourage um, him to at least or her to at least try to interact, that establish that it's a safe space, establish that it's okay to try stuff out, and if he chooses not to engage in a way, you don't have to feel guilty about that. You don't have to take the responsibility of of his experience, because at the end of the day he is responsible for his own experience. Like as a
Yeah.
DM, you can only do so much as to help your players in terms of RP,
Mm-hmm.
and you just really need to provide that space for them that they can, if they choose to, if they choose to go 100% or just dabble a little bit in terms of RP, because they like always, like with acting and stuff like that, and with the acting workshops that I've joined before, it's all about what you contribute to the scene, right? So it's always a give and take. So if your fellow actor does not give you anything, then there's really nothing you can do about that, right? There has to be that exchange of energy, and for that
Yeah.
to happen, certain things have to happen internally first. Like you have to get comfortable, or you have to push yourself, or essentially just be ready when that time comes. So part of the joy of D&D is just having that safe
Yeah.
environment. And maybe we don't know whether or not like he's stuck in his own head. Like how do you get that person to be unstuck? And
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely something that he has to discover on his own, because otherwise
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's his experience,
Yeah.
what's it's his responsibility
Yeah.
and stuff like
So,
that.
yeah, I'll contribute kasi I'm not the best at RPing. That's ano. Like all I can do is a really lousy is a really lousy cowboy accent. But in terms of, I guess, of like thinking up of character motivations, because you mentioned that he wants to play the character. I guess one good way to how should I say this? And this is also to contribute to what Fonzie said about having a safe space, is to just ask the question, what would my character, whose backstory, whose background I wrote, how would he act in this situation? How would he react, diba? So parang you do that before the RP happens, and then you contain you just have that safe space in mind and just go with it.
If he perceives something, you were saying.
Ayun, sorry. I mean, if he perceives that how should I say this? If he perceives that his character, yeah, nawala yung context. Pero essentially what I was saying was that um he should know, he can try to just ask the simple question of what would my character do, given his motivations. And if he at first he chose this way, then go with it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, these questions can be easily answered if the player really worked on his character.
Yeah, yeah. But speaking of like working on your character, during the game isn't the time to do that.
Mm-mm.
Like when you're playing, that isn't necessarily the time when you get to work on your character. You get to do that before the game or
Yeah.
in between. And if you're thinking about or you're being stuck in that mode of like how would your character respond, that would probably point to the fact that you might have not done the necessary
Mm.
preparation like before the game or
Bye.
even
Time skip, yo.
yeah. Thank you, Sky Internet, for
Oh
all your
no.
wonderful service. But we're
Yeah.
back, so I'm bound to ask the next question. So this is
Mm-hmm.
an interesting question, particularly for DMs, and it is addressed to DMs specifically, and posted by Bernie's Left Nut, and he asks,
That's a good name.
"How do you all role play NPCs without feeling as though your dialogue is cringy?"
Okay.
So, how like if a DM, he says here, it feels difficult to come up with things on the spot. When things go sideways, I feel as though my improvisation isn't up to par for a DM. How do you all prepare, or lack thereof, for characters in your worlds? Along those lines, I hear a lot of DMs who don't tend to spend a lot of time on prep work. How do you
Mm-hmm.
all improvise your sessions so well?
Hmm. Oh yeah. I'll answer first. Honestly, I'm not. I have also mentioned this in the past episode. I'm not very good with improvisation, so I usually have my campaigns on tracks most of the time. My home brews at least. But I guess what can really quote unquote prepare you for that would be just practice. And if you have a really good background about your character, about the NPCs that you play, the world that you're in, it should be relatively easy for you. Relatively, of course, should be relatively easy for you to how should I say this, come up with things to say, how to respond to specific people, you
Yeah.
know uh, yeah, that's really just about it. Again, I suck at improv, and yeah, I think Fonzie can answer this question much better than I could.
Actually, there's an answer here that I would like to upvote.
Okay.
It's an answer by Professor Chaos 112, and
Okay.
he says
Nice.
he says embrace the cringe, live it, and own it.
What
Which
is cringe?
which is actually really good advice. Really good advice.
Mm-hmm.
You would just have to develop it by doing it. You know, there's no
Mm-hmm.
real way to go around the work that you need to do in terms of like improv. The only way for you to be better at improv is to do improv. And there's no other way around it. No amount of preparation can ever replace the actuality of being there in front
Yeah.
of your players and having to sometimes throw away whatever it is that you prepared, or have something very handy like have like specific dialogues for you to be able to use as guides.
Mm-hmm.
Like what works is actually just just go about and do and check out like AL mods and how they're prepared. Just understanding what their motivations are is would be very would make things a lot easier for you guys, especially because that's your baseline of how you would be able to guide the character into
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Just understanding like what they're all about, and of course like adding yourself into the character. Like you don't have to get stuck with how the character is written.
Mm.
You as a DM, you are empowered to either throw away the script or follow the script to T, or add
Yeah.
your own things into the script, which is
Yeah.
something that you are very much welcome to do. So yeah, so that's like, and in terms of role play, you understand then that the only way for you to enjoy it is to feed off, not the each other and with the
Yeah.
players and actual interactions. And as you are having dialogues with yourself, that could tend to be really cringy because it's hard to do. But in terms of like having fun with conversations, that gets better over time because it's just a muscle. Improv is a muscle that you
Yeah.
need to practice day in and
Yeah.
day
You
out.
need to flex that shit in order to really be good at it.
Yeah, and sometimes you're good at it, sometimes you're not, but you can't really, you can't go into a session and almost guarantee your improv is on point. You just need
Yeah.
to be ready. You just
Yeah.
need to be there.
Yeah. That's why I think we mentioned this earlier. Uh, Find a safe space for everyone to embrace the cringe, diba?
Embrace the cringe. I like
Yeah.
that advice.
Yeah. Post it one of these days. All right. Yeah. And I think pertaining to what you said, Fonzie, kanina about how you putting yourself into the character. I think we had experience with this, or I had experience with this particularly with the White Blue Mountain, and it's something I appreciate actually about Adventures League mods. And with the White Blue Mountain adventure, we put our respective spins on the on the Gino Sphinx. Yeah. Where yours, I think yours, Fonzie, was a very supportive Gino Sphinx, a very
Mhm.
corporate one. Mine was a very game show one. So someone who would lead the players to certain stages. So yeah, and that's something that I appreciate when it comes to some of those mods pertaining to how these characters are written. Like as far as I'm concerned, they will give you they will give you the PC's motivations, how they are, but it's fun to have fun whenever you play with these characters. So you can go crazy, put a little bit of yourself in there, or practice your role play skills and try to be in character. So yeah, all right,
Yeah,
that's how I'll answer it.
that's a great answer.
One more question. I have a particularly interesting one actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is from the this was posted 1 year ago by Moon of Korzai in the D&D Next D&D Next Reddit thread. It's a discussion. Should I kill a PC who tried to kill another PC? So, okay, so here's how it goes. So I am having some issues as a DM. So I'll just send this I'll send this link to you also, Fonzie, so you can check it out. There is some party conflict. Everyone in the party gets along, but the whole group of PCs are either evil or neutral. But one PC, a rogue, is kind of throwing a wrench in things. The character basically has two motivators, gold and magic items. Ooh, He's already tried to lift things from other PCs. Tonight, during combat with a group of particularly nasty foes, the other rogue in the party went down. He passed one death saving throw. Then, on the next turn, the first rogue shot at him 3 times with a crossbow. The rogue only got it once, but any more than that, and he would have died outright. I do not think the party can come back from this. The player of the Warlock's excuse was it's what my character would do. There is already a rift with two PCs being close, the rogue and the fighter. Then the first rogue and the barbarian are so close as they both brought their characters from another campaign and have a history together. The thing is, the party had already run into an Oni disguised as a dwarf. They joined forces with him, but eventually tried to double cross him. They still don't know he's an Oni, but the bad rogue ran after attacking Rogue before the combat resolved. I had already planned that the Oni was still stalking them and was planning on attacking. But now the problem rogue is alone and he's run into the Oni. Should the Oni take the chance and kill him? This is what the Oni's plan has been all along. I'm not I'm just not sure if I would be doing the wrong thing. I just needed to write this out. Thanks for reading and any advice you give. So that's something I've never experienced before. But yeah, I'd like to know how you would adjudicate this, Fonzie.
In terms of like, this is why we don't like creating campaigns with evil characters,
Yeah, yeah.
because it creates situations
Tension.
like this where you would be forced to imagine um, and adjudicate like internal conflict, which is something that I'm not a stranger of, uh, even in the context of AL, right? But there are certain things that you should always trust. One is your gut. So, what does your gut say in terms of like, should I or should I not do this? If your gut is saying yes, go with your gut.
Yeah.
What I would do is that I would make it fair, right? I would make it fair in terms of like, would this be a situation for said character to finally ask for help from the party mates and maybe have a chance of surviving? Or if he chooses to stick to his own path and not
Become an
choose
asshole rogue.
and become an asshole rogue, then this could be his final, final moments
Yeah.
in Catamaran. So there are a few choices that he would have to make, that he is forced to make them. Life choices, whether or not that he would go about this, this
Path.
status quo, this path of his that he has created, and he will certainly, he might
Get
certainly die,
potatoes.
yeah. Or if he plans to trust his teammates a little bit more, um,
Hmm.
depend on them, give support and ask for support from them in such times like this. And this could be a start of something else or something new
Yeah.
for him as a character, like a learning point.
Yeah.
So I would always would want to introduce like a certain level of choice for characters, and especially for DMs. Like we could introduce ways and means to be able to do that, to be able to get rid of a character. It's not that hard to do. But in terms of like introducing um, story elements that would make choices made by the characters a little bit more, you know, significant to their character development, or that would make the story or that would make the game a little bit more interesting. So that's definitely something to look at. But essentially, yeah, it sounds like there is a lot of chaos in the game. There is a lot of like discord, and I think that is the general theme of the game itself.
Yeah, it's a
And
Game of Thrones.
so why insert mercy in a merciless game?
Yeah,
So I don't know. Like just go with your gut, I say.
yeah. Yeah, I actually like that answer. Cause if anything, player characters I think should not be outside of this thing we call in writing character development. And I actually really love Fonzie's answer about having this particular rogue maybe learning something, potentially learning something from this particular encounter. You don't kill your party mates. They're there to help you. You kill them, you die on your own. You get left alone, diba? So basically, yeah. If the party is able to save him, and maybe you guys are able to defeat this Oni, yeah, go ahead and see how this can progress into more budding friendship in terms of within the party. And yeah, but if he doesn't, and if he still wants to kill that other rogue, then it's probably time to kill him off and probably have a good one-on-one with your friend. And maybe, I guess, maybe um this is why session zeros are important. Like, if you guys agreed on this, if you guys agreed to have evil or neutral aligned parties, it's fine, it's great. And people shouldn't feel bad for killing people off. You live with the consequences of your actions, after all. If this is a grim dark setting, go ahead and just screw people over because they like screwing people things over. But if this is a generally D and fantasy setting where you wish to inspire each other with tales of daring do, then maybe that's a good starting point. This guy wanted to stab the other person's back, give him a chance for retribution. And yeah, I think that's an excellent answer, Fonzie. Like, yeah, even PCs aren't exempt from learning new things. Lalo na PCs. Like, they change alignments as well. So yeah, they're not outside of doing good things. After
No,
all, they
not
have a
at all.
choice.
Not at
Yeah.
all. So yeah, those are great answers. So
Mm.
yeah, for you guys who are thinking of killing your own players, take that into account. I have had that idea run through my brain more than a few times already. So, but I've
Mm.
never really acted on it. I just
Yeah.
gave them opportunities for them to, question their own choices and have that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, sorry, I know that this is a question, pero the end of the day, this is the choice of the. I mean, as much as possible, you'd like your players' choices to kill them. I mean, sometimes they'll choose very wisely, and it's great to provide them a good challenge. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, sometimes it's great if you kill them because they made the really wrong choice, not because of some flaw or some character flaw. They just in life sometimes bad choices are made and bad things happen out of that. So
Yep,
yeah.
you live and die with those choices. So yeah. So is that it? Do we have time for one more question?
I think if you yeah we have I guess we have one more time. How many minutes did we get cut off earlier? But I don't remember.
Around 20 minutes,
Okay,
more or
so
less.
maybe one more will do.
Yeah. So this is a
That's
very
okay.
interesting question. I'm not sure if I
Oh
asked
boy.
this, but if I did, just let me know. because I don't quite remember, but I do remember reading this question a little bit earlier today. It's sent over by Class B2 Carcinogen. Uh,
Oh no.
he asked, when is hitting down PC again okay? So he's wondering how many ALDMs will target a downed PC. So is this number one, never okay? Number two, situational, based on what happens in the combat. Like after the enemies see a downed enemy or healed. Number three, situational, depending on the enemies. Let's say zombies or beasts or stuff like that. Number four, only okay in high stakes combat, in boss fights or combats in epics. Number five, okay as long as you give notice to players that you plan to do it so they can respond to increased risk of death appropriately.
Yeah,
So, how would you
that's fair.
respond to this? Like, when is hitting a down PC okay?
I think as a general rule, if you guys have agreed on ano na like I agree, tier 1 probably not because these are starting players. Lalo na if you have, especially if you have beginner players with you, at least try not to like when a person is knocked down and is unconscious, they're not a threat, right? And I agree that as levels progress, that's the time you can probably consider like hitting the NPC. But I feel like there has to be some level of not consent. If I'm not sure if consent's the right word, a level of disclosure is needed. Like I remember how our first Tiamat campaign started. Um, EJ was okay with us at level 1 gentle, and then things ramped up when we reached tier 2. And he did tell us na he will use Tiamat against us without no holds barred. Of course, we haven't still gotten to that, but yeah, it's he did. There were several instances where he really tried to um, kill our party, but that's okay because we are like at tier 4 already, so that's excusable. That as a general rule, I agree. You have to let them know, or you have to let your players know that it's reasonable. Your enemies, your sworn enemies, most likely will try to actually kill you and double tap. How about you, Fonzie? What do you think?
Well, as a rule for me, I never try to kill my players in tier ones for AL games. Although I'm will not hesitate if in case they do um, they make really bad mistakes. I will not save them from that. I
Yeah.
mean, what I consider as bad mistakes, insulting the captain of the guard, or insulting a god, or waking a very obviously sleeping dragon. Those are mistakes that are very hard to, protect you from. So I would say that tier ones have plot armor.
Yeah, more or less. They don't normally face off against
Mhm.
dragons at that level.
Uh,
Not yet, at least.
Tier twos, I would consider, depending on the nature of the enemy
Mm-hmm.
and also the situation, right? But I won't go for TPKs.
Yeah.
Um, so I so that's tier one. I protect from all character deaths. Um, tier twos, I protect from TPKs, not so much character deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Tier threes, I will not protect you from anything, but I will be fair. And tier fours, I will try to kill you.
That's fair. That's fun.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair. Like that's
I
about
get.
fair. And it's not fun. Tier ones being that it's never fun to die in a tier one mod because it's tier one mods are seldomly very scary aside from some but essentially they're very story driven.
Yeah.
To die from a tier 1 mod in battle is usually, it's either the game isn't, or the combat sequence isn't balanced,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the DM's fault, or like the dice isn't really hitting, like in terms of like action economy, you don't get much, right?
Yeah.
Which is also kind of like the DM's fault.
The DM's fault, yeah. Action economy is very dependent on the DM, particularly for
Yeah.
how many creatures are on the board.
And yeah, and in the general, like in the general circumstances of the battle, right, and how it commenced, and or even like how it is communicated to the players, like how
Yeah.
dire the situation is and how careful they should be. I think there should be some level of like care in terms of like communicating that to the players before
Yes.
you hand them over to a very deadly encounter. That is also the DM's fault. That's why I always keep saying, like, if you die in a tier 1 mod, it's usually the DM's
Yeah.
fault. Usually the DM's fault. Unless you wake a dragon.
I mean, unless you jump off a really high building.
Yeah, or do something really, really dumb. So,
Yeah. And for some reason, I don't wanna call her out on this, but I think I'm not sure. Pero remember in Critical Role how Keyleth,
oh yeah.
the druid, just launched herself off of a 3,000 foot crevice and jumped into the ocean as a goldfish. Of course, there will be ramifications to that.
Of
Yeah.
course you
Anyway,
will.
yeah, I mean, I think they were at tier 3 at that time. But the point, or tier 4 rather. But the point of the matter is, unless it's something that the players do, you have to let them know you will die. If it's for tier 1, you will die if you try to jump off a 1,000 foot building, right? So yeah, uh,
Yeah.
it's not something that it's not something that there are conditions for death when it comes to that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like I've killed my fair share of PCs in my table in terms of like and tier 1 mods, but it's always, I would say it's always had to do with their choices in the game, right? There was one character who chose not to like strike a deal with the enemy at the end, right? So he got killed. He was the only one who
Okay.
did not say yes. And I made it very clear to that player that you will lose this character. And he was okay with it. So there are certain things that I communicate to the players before. And I don't want them to go into like discussions or like situations not knowing the stakes. They should
Yeah.
have an idea what the stakes are because
Yeah.
that's their characters, right? And
Yeah.
I would well, unless of course like you have specific mods that are like pronounced as really deadly. Those are those are very would be very difficult to kind of like water down, because there are tier 1 mods that are built like, is this a tier 1 mod? I don't think this is a
Yeah.
tier 1. Like
Mm.
Jews of the Dead, just thinking of one off the top of my head. And also um that one adventure with all the kobolds, uh a thousand tiny deaths, I think it's called. Those are really deadly in tier 1 modules. So unless
Mm.
there are those modules that specifically state to the DM that this is a very deadly module, then I don't know. It's up to you to communicate that to the players, I guess, through
Mhm.
hints. Like, are you sure you're bringing a fresh level 1 to an epic? So, so,
Yeah.
so those are things that you could probably do as a DM.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
All right. Cool. So those are our questions. If you guys loved it, let us know. We'll come up with another batch. So we'll know. We'll come up with a Reddit questions episode 2.0 or something.
Yeah.
Pero yeah, thank you so much for ano. Fonzie, we need to wrap this up because we have a game coming in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where can they find you in the internets?
You can find me on at FonziToot on Instagram and also on Twitter. You can also look at my our Facebook page, Tabletop Titos, where we post all our games and stuff and D&D memes and stuff. Also, I also have a podcast, Activate Leadership. Also, we are on Facebook as well, so you could catch me there. How about you, Carl?
All right. Thank you. I am Carlo Geeks Out at carlogeeksout.com. Please subscribe to the channel. You can also find me in Facebook and Instagram. Just type in Carlo Geeks Out. I'll be there. Follow our social medias. Subscribe to our channels. Carlo Geeks Out and Tabletop Titos. We're aiming for 100 before the year ends, guys. Please help us out. So we can own that sweet vanity URL. Let us know what you think. Send us your comments. Send us more questions that you want us to answer. And we'll see you guys next time.
All
Our
right,
short rest
guys.
is over.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys. Yeah.
A short rest with Fonzi and Carlo.